In this tutorial we're going to be going over the basics of how to set up a camera within Rhino. Now there's multiple ways to do this within the Rhino environment, but this is just one of those ways. It's the way I prefer because I think it's the most clear and the most easy to manipulate after you actually set up the camera. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and just set up a scene. What I want to do is, for the sake of this tutorial, I want some of these objects to be a bit taller, so you feel like you're sort of in between them. So this guy is about 10 feet tall. We'll make one that's a little bit shorter. I'm going to get rid of this one because it's too small. And we'll go ahead and put this around 7 feet. So I just want to set up some objects so that you can actually see where the camera is and how it's viewing the objects in the scene. So we'll go ahead and change that to shaded. Now, the way I like to start with putting in a camera is selecting this point tool over here, so just a single point, and we can put it out in space over here. Now this may be way too close to your scene. It may be too far away. You'll just have to sort of see that once you actually put the camera into place. So then I'll take this point and I'll actually go ahead and move it up. What I want to do here is I want to locate this right around the eye level of where a human would be. So there's a lot of renderings that happen where you're either taking a view that's really, really low as if you're on the ground, or really high as if it's sort of an aerial shot. But what I want to go over here is sort of getting an actual view from a human perspective. So our file down here is going to be in inches. So if we take a 6 foot tall person at 72 inches, and we say let's say that their eyes are at 68 inches just for the sake of argument. So we'll move that point there. So this point is going to register sort of where our eye is going to be and where the origination point of the camera is going to be. So what we can go ahead and do here is in our properties menu, we have a camera setting that's over here. So if you don't have the properties menu, just pull up this little gear here and you can go to properties here. And what that's going to allow you to do is see all of your camera settings. So right now the camera is basically just defaulted to whatever I zoom around, and so as I'm zooming you can see that these numbers are changing, and our target is not changing. So if I zoom selected on this, our camera will have changed where our actual target is. So the camera is actually where the camera is starting, and the target is what that camera is looking at, sort of in the center of its viewport. So if we go ahead and go into our camera and just click place and make sure our point snap is on, we can go ahead and click here, and what that's going to allow us to do is set a camera that's actually starting at this point. So the key thing to remember here is, now if I go ahead and I start zooming around the file, these numbers are going to start to change again. So it's actually going to move where my camera is. So what I want to make sure to do is, once I place this guy, I want to always hold Control and Alt when I'm zooming around, and you can see now that my X, Y, and Z location are not actually changing. So as we sort of pan around, our camera is not actually changing where it's located. The only thing that we're going to be changing is the target down here. So 50, a lens length of 50 is a little bit too long, so we're going to turn that down to about 32. Right around 28 to 32 is the perspective that the human eye actually sees at. And if you want to go ahead and click on the target just to see what this does, you can actually change where the target is looking. So by changing this, it'll actually change where you're looking. So you can imagine this as if your head is where the point is, and then the target is you sort of swiveling your head to look at a different part of the image. Now obviously, because we can't actually see all of the objects, we're far too close to this. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go to View, and then set camera and then show camera. But when I do that, so you saw how the first time we did that, what actually ended up happening was if we were clicked on our top view and we went to view, set camera, show camera, it's going to start coming up with lines in here. The reason for that is because it's actually showing the camera that's used to take the top view, which would essentially be an infinitely tall camera that would be looking down onto the objects. So before we show our camera, what we want to do is make sure we're clicked onto perspective. So the perspective should be highlighted in this darker blue color. And then if we go to view, set camera, show camera, you'll see it pop up in this view, you see it in this view, and you see it in this view. So the only view it won't be showing up in is your perspective view. That's how you know you're actually in the right spot. So what's nice about this now is that we can actually take this and we can now move that original point that we had, we can move that. And what that'll do is actually move us much farther away from the objects. And then you can see if I'm holding Control and Alt in my perspective view, it'll actually change where my camera, it'll change the orientation of my camera in each one of these views to match that. So if we want to change where our target is, we can just sort of click on that point. We can move it up and down. That'll change the tilt of our camera. And if we want to move it left and right, that'll actually change the sort of the swivel of our head, if you will. So once you have that view set, you can experiment with all of these different tools. But for now, we're going to go to set camera, show camera. That'll turn it off. If we go into our perspective view, you can see we're still at 32. You can see in our plan view that we actually move the point much farther away. So this now registers the location of the point in space now that we're able to see all of our objects. And the last thing you're going to want to do after you set a view is you're going to want to go to click on the little down arrow next to perspective, go to set view, go to named views. Now in class I made the mistake of naming this perspective, which you don't want to do, so don't overwrite the stock options within Rhino. So we're just going to call this view 1 and then click OK. So you'll see a little icon pop up there. You can now X out of this. So now if we zoom around and we lose where we are, we can just click down on here, go to set view and click view 1, and that will bring us right back to where we were. Now if you slightly want to change where the position of your eye is within this, you can go in and sort of manually start to tweak these camera options. So if we take our Z location and we turn it down to 60, that'll just register a slightly shorter viewpoint from a shorter perspective, if you will. So that's basically how to introduce cameras. I like to experiment between changing the lens length around. So depending on, this is around human eye, but you can start to get into sort of more like fisheye type of things, or if you incorporate longer lenses, you'll get a little bit less distortion. So you can mess around with those settings. And then the placing of the camera and the target are really crucial. So now if I have everything set up but I just want to sort of center my view, I can sort of click on this place and then that will change what I'm actually looking at. And then if you're not happy with that, again, just hold Control and Alt and you can shift your screen around.